off the intro.
You are listening to Kaisers Kastle.
Hey folks, welcome to Kaisers Kastle. You're on the KTRN, the Castle Talk Radio Network. Today I'm joined by Dan. I'm going to let him kick it off, but first, I got to tell you what the subject of the show is today. We are going to deep dive into the deep state.
Whether you're a couple that likes movies, have kids that use all your bandwidth, or have a jet-setting...
All right, and away we go. Deep dive into the
Yeah, it went
state.
I hate when they do that, when you have something already brought up, and all of a sudden they decide they're going to throw something at you. Here we go. That's what you should have heard, folks. Boomer Tech at its finest. All right, my brother. Let me let you run with today's news and views, and I'm gonna go grab something real quick while you do that, and I will be right back. This is Dano, folks, on the KTRN Castle Talk Radio Network.
All right, everybody. Welcome to KTRN, Castle Talk Radio Network. This is Dano. Kaiser will be back in a couple minutes. And today's news brought to you by the Never Trumpers. And it got good quick. Boy, this week, North Korea's a lot of great news. Let's hope that this is not a ploy to try to infiltrate the South as they've wanted to do all along, because now Kim Jong has decided that they don't need no more stinking missile tests. They're also prepared to go ahead and let bygones be bygones. They want to start talking about reunification. So I believe we're going to see some troop movement from the United States coming in, just as an insurance policy. I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all goes in South Korea. Of course, the Democrats and the Never Trumpers will never go ahead and tout any of this information. Why? Doesn't fit the narrative. Means the deep state, it's in its death throes, even deeper yet. I just happened to see this pop up here on the screen. I was talking with someone yesterday, I believe it was, and they were talking about, well, AT&T and Verizon, they're really they're really pretty good and pretty tight, and so now the Justice Department has opened up an antitrust investigation into potential coordination by AT&T and Verizon and the Telecommunication Standards Organization to hinder consumers from easily switching wireless carriers, according to 6 people with knowledge of the inquiry. CenturyLink, I will tell you, is probably going to end up in the middle of this before it's all said and done. CenturyLink is not your typical wireless, but CenturyLink does not like to let their numbers be switched easily either. All I can tell you is from my experience, dealing with this on a day in, day out basis for 40 hours a week, CenturyLink is probably going to end up in the midst of this as soon as they can find out who they're in bed with. So this is all very, very different. Haven't seen this in a long time. I think we're going to see some more investigations of this sort as things roll along. We did go ahead and touch North Korea. They are acquiescing, as we would like to say.
They are being brought
They're giving
to the
up.
table, my brother.
Oh, and of course, as always, Mr. Pompeo was there, conducted negotiations over Easter. Ta-ta-ta. Guess what? It was so quiet, they didn't even know that it happened, and it beat them over the head. So I do believe Kaiser and I were talking about this. I think this has a little bit to do with some of the sanctions that have been hitting Russia and have been hitting China. I think they're starting to feel the pressure, and I think they finally have decided that propping up the regime in North Korea really does not hold any kind of real future value for them. I do understand from something that I was reading earlier in the week, Kaiser may have a little bit more on it than what I do, but most definitely the U.S. troops remaining in South Korea has been accepted by the North. So this is going to be this is going to be the long dream, because remember, they've been divided since the armistice. North Korea is now asking for peace after all this time. So none of this ever would have happened under the Obama regime. I'm telling you now, it never would have happened.
It hasn't happened
I think
under any regime since the armistice was signed. So, I mean,
right.
You know, if you don't think Trump's doing something, then you're not listening to the KTRN.
It's the art of the deal, my friend. It's the art of the deal. You just have to go ahead and bring them to the table and let them know what's what. I have not heard if China has withdrawn their troops from the northern part of the border with North Korea yet. As far as the nuclear tests go, they may or may not have.
Well, they're not going to withdraw their troops. Neither are the Russians. Remember, Russia only has 13 miles of that border contiguous with North Korea,
right.
And then you have the Chinese with the rest. And basically, because the smuggling into North Korea, even with all the stuff we've done to them over the years, that's been their only real trade companion besides Russia. And then, of course, shipping aisles with Iran, Cuba, and other states. But the problem is, we do make it a habit of boarding their ships on the open seas. So bills of, what they used to call that back in the day, bill of marque, they're still real.
Bill of lading?
No. Bill of marque, where you can,
okay.
It's basically piracy for a nation state.
Okay. All right. So we've got that going on. Of course, the main lamestream media, as we would call it, is not going to want to talk about it. Seems like things within the collusion case of everything that's been going on wrong with that has been in the news this week. Seems as though Mr. Trump has gone ahead and brought Rudy Giuliani, former federal prosecutor, former mayor of New York, the only the one mayor that knew how to run it and make anything be right. They do believe that there's internal pressure being applied through back channels against Mr. Comey to go ahead and shut this down. Now, of course, Mr. Comey found out this week while he was on the chattering chicks on The View. He found out that he was subject of a DOJ investigation, and his book tour has been canceled effective today. His book tour has been canceled. I guess a female journalist stood up against him and gave him 7 kinds of Hades. So he was none too thrilled about that. Of course, they escorted her out. But IG and the IG,
Yep.
Mr. Horowitz, has gone ahead and turned over all of his reports now. I do believe that while Jeff Sessions has threatened to depart the DOJ if Mr. Rosenstein is fired, I honestly believe that Mr. Rosenstein is going to suffer the same fate as McCabe, and that when the IG's reports are turned over to the Bureau of Standards, he as well will be summarily dismissed.
Oh, what you're going to see on this one is going to be massive, man. This will go all the way to the actual administration, and it may bleed over into a couple other. There's a reason why the deep state's going so heavily against it. Of course, Dan, I know you know this, but most of the mass public don't. You got Holder. You got to think about Fast and Furious. Holder was also in the administration under Clinton. The male, not the female. The dicker, not the liquor. What you're going to see and this is going to be real when you see this. Holder was the assistant U.S. Attorney General under Janet Reno.
Right.
So all the corruption that happened under Reno, and remember Reno's famous last words, Trump will be elected under my dead body, and all of a sudden he gets elected on my birthday, November 9th, and Janet Reno died that glorious day. So while she's turning over in her grave, Holder's going to be left holding the bag for all the corruption. And notice who he just went with right now. He got appointed with, you're going to love this when I tell you, Hotep Jesus did the maximum troll IRL, and, he's a black dude. But he walked into Starbucks calling him racist and got his free cup of emancipation coffee. So that was,
oh my God,
that was epic.
Well, that was very, very telling for Starbucks.
Yep.
You don't know it. It's just one of those things. Bougie day, as Eddie Murphy said, it wasn't karma. It wasn't deja vu. It was a bougie day. We all been here at one point in time, so it's a bougie day. And so really don't want to give too much time today to Starbucks, but they're receiving their comeuppance.
Yes, they are.
I think that is the safest way of possibly putting it. Their comeuppance is coming on a triple serving. One thing I did notice this week, and I started looking back in a little bit more, everybody, well, for those of us that have been around for a little bit, we remember Whitewater. Now, who in the world in the Whitewater probe possibly could have let Hillary Clinton off?
Oh, Ken Starr.
Now let's put our thinking caps, boys and girls. Oh no, it gets better than this.
Right. Okay.
No, Ken Starr didn't let her off.
He took that whole thing to the mess on the dress. He could have jumped on her because she was in charge at that time of the Whitewater investigation. She was in charge of the Rose Law firm, and it wasn't until they left office that whole box of records all of a sudden mysteriously appeared in the White House residence.
But well, it come to find out, Mr. Comey was doing the bidding and the investigating for the FBI. So Mr. Comey has followed the Clintons' coattails all the way from Arkansas on up. So yes, Mr. Comey is getting ready to hear the bell toll, and I think it's going to toll in a way that he didn't quite figure on. I found it quite fitting that while he was on The View, the cackling hens of The View did go ahead and advise him live on the air that his happy ass was under investigation. So most definitely, all these things are beginning to come around as we started discussing back in November. Yeah. Kaiser and I started talking about this back in November. Now, the other thing that is happening here at home, out on the left coast, as Mr. Limbaugh would appropriately deem it, is more and more counties are bucking the state of California's sanctuary law, sanctuary city status for their cities.
Right.
More and more counties are suing, and it's coming. Also, on the next ballot for the next election cycle in California, secession will be on the ballots.
Yep.
So it's going to go ahead and it's going to be divided into 2 or 3 sections for the state. So it leaves a lot to be desired, a lot of unanswered questions. But yet, still, in the end, when it comes down to it, there's change taking place in California, and I have a lot of California peeps out there. And Mr. Brown is beginning to find that he doesn't have Miss Ronstadt to bail his butt out this time, and it's pretty lonely at the top for him now. Keep in mind that Jerry Moonbeam Brown has never held a regular day job in his entire life. He has welched off of the taxpayers' teat, much like his father did. These folks are the problem. These folks are the deep state that artificially keeps everything alive so they can have what they want and screw everyone else. Now, it seems as though China is kind of taking advantage of all the excitement. It appears as though the Chinese may looks like they're having a little bit more of a show of force in the South China Sea. And then all this at the same time as everyone's trying to ditch the petrodollar, it looks like Turkey is trying to recall all of its gold from the United States, much as Germany attempted to do. So there's a lot of end days things taking place. We're not afraid of the Bible on this show.
Nope.
Start reading the book of Revelation.
Look it up.
Start reading, and it's all there. You just have to be able to go ahead and read it and have a very open mind. I'm not telling you what you have to do. My advice is go ahead, read it, understand it, just look at it and read it for what it is. The word. It's the word for a reason. We're going to leave that there. We're not going to have an altar call. We're not going to pass the plate.
Yeah. No, we definitely are seeing eye to eye on that one. The one thing that I'm going to be thrilled with are all those juicy electoral votes when California votes for secession in the different states like Jefferson and down there. Remember, North County and San Diego, all those border areas. That's also up for grabs. That's a big population center. So the Democrats may not be able to count on those electoral votes come next election cycle for presidency.
Well, I was watching the breakdown for the as far as votes, Senate seats, electoral votes, and everything went. Mm-hmm. And this dividing this into thirds, it's really going to go ahead and cause the liberals to be able to go ahead and decide what portion of the state they're really going to give their money to save.
Yep.
And there's a lot of agricultural areas up in the north part by Sacramento and that. Yep. They've got a lot of conservative agricultural areas there. In the southern part down by San Diego, that all is well. That's a very conservative place. So I do believe that they're going to take their last stand in the Bay Area, and they're going to devote a lot of their money there because this dramatically alters the makeup. The population breakdown is roughly going to be the same for everyone. It's going to be like 1.3 million, I think it was. I read it. I don't have the map here in front of me up on the computer right now. You're going to see about 1.3 million per divisioned area of the state of California when this goes through. Jerry Brown is in no position to stop this. This is a constitutional crisis for them, and there's no two ways around this. So we've got some people pushing this, and I think also part of this is an effort to punish Silicon Valley as well, and they're going to put them under the gun because they've been pretty busy selling us and selling our information out.
Well, Silicon Valley got a taste of their medicine. You know, they bully everybody online. Finally, a little Iranian girl got sick of it and went there and bullied back. You know, this is the whole thing, man. I'm not justifying anything that anybody does, but what I am going to say is that Silicon Valley needs regulation, and I mean it in the way that Ma Bell was broken up. Google, YouTube, which we're on right now, Facebook, all of them, they become political operatives unabashedly. They don't even hide it anymore. And
oh no,
so it's an issue. Yeah, you have places where I'm at on Minds.com. I'm also over at BitChute, so I really don't. It won't bother me a bit if things happen.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, there's a lot of people that enjoy these platforms, and they're becoming less and less enjoyable. You know, I mean, I remember being a troll. We've all done it. And when you're trolling, you're having a good time. But in all honesty, it's more about just getting your opinion out. And that's what the old mainstream news, what used to be called the real news, has lost so many people because of, even if they were doing a live stream, they would disable chats because trolls were coming on. And you know what? Trolls, you can ignore a troll. But what you can't ignore is when all of a sudden nobody has the ability to speak up on the Washington Times, on other daggone newspaper outlets. They just haven't kept up with the times. And the youth are not going to put up with not having their voice heard. All right, sorry about that, Dano. Go on.
No. I interrupted you. So this is what I can tell you. The traditional print media that we grew up enjoying, it's all changed. And they're all it's all operativized now. I think that's a new word we're going to use here. Operativized. Like, and the reason I want to say that it's operativized because they don't stick with the truth.
Right.
They give you what they want you to know. This is why everyone got all upset because Sinclair Broadcasting, and remember they had that video and they went through and they caught them all on sequence saying their wording and everything. Everyone got upset and they said, "Oh my God, there goes the media." Dude, the media was gone 30 years ago.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
You didn't even have to be worried about it.
Oh, yeah.
But what I can tell you is this. The anchors that did this work for Sinclair Broadcasting. We have an ABC outlet here in Columbus that had, much to the dislike of their anchors, if they wanted to keep their job, they read this statement. The statement basically said, "My feelings have nothing to do with the news. It's facts. It's facts, good, bad, or indifferent, and we're obligated to go ahead and to report those." It's totally different in the left for all of the dirty little tricks that YouTube, Facebook, and everyone else in Twitter is pulling. Twitter is shuttering conservative after conservative voice down. For all of these stunts that they're pulling, the one thing that they're not going to be able to stop is when the merger goes through, when Sinclair Broadcasting absorbs the Tribune media outlets, this is going to go ahead and provide the largest non-pay media outlet in the United States, and it's going to be conservative. It isn't going to be liberal, so that gives everyone that gives them the Chicago Tribune, that gives them the long vaunted LA Times. That's what it gives them. It gives them all of these television stations that for years people have been begging for real news, not the garbage that people perceive as news, but real news. And this is all going to change. So Silicon Valley can do whatever it is that they want to do. At some point in time, they're going to get beat at their own game.
It's what the tagline in the Terminator was. If you remember the first Terminator movie, you can't fight the future.
Right.
And, it's going to come. You can, the future is going to keep moving forward. You're not going to be able to pull it back, and that's what they've been fighting to do. And it's wrong-headed, and they just think they're too big-brained. And the problem is their brains are so open, their minds are so open, it just fell out their mookie heads.
Well, the print media is dying its own death because it refused to print the real news. Back when Michael Coleman was still in office he was there with his Chinese handlers doing all of their deal, and he went ahead and he cheated on his wife with his hooker girlfriend. And they had that baby out of wedlock and caused all the fuss and the fight, and his wife tried to burn the house down numerous times and was never arrested for it.
Right. But hey,
the Columbus Dispatch.
Here's something, a buddy of mine who was on Franklin County Sheriff's Office. He was an investigator down there, right? What I will tell you is, do you notice every time their house burned down, Coleman was out there with his little girly girl? So, that's the whole thing about living in the largest small town in the United States of America, and it is the capital city in our state. The best part about it is everybody knows everybody, and everybody's into everybody's business. And so old Coleman never got away with that. And that's the whole difference, though. I mean, you said 50 years. If you think back to when Cronkite was anchor during the Vietnam War, he was the one who officially stated the Vietnam War was over. We couldn't win it. And that piece of garbage shaped the narrative for that war. you know, and he was
Right.
America's most trusted anchor. And look at what happened to what he was CBS, right? Look where CBS is now. They're in the toilet.
Yeah, he was. Oh yeah, they're trying to push Les Moonves out. Mr. Redstone, I think it is. He's having an ugly way to go. They're starting to push people out. So this is what I'm going to tell you. We have so many conservative young voices out here that we're trying to reach. We desperately need to reach these kids, and we need to talk to them. We need to let them know, hey, call me. I'm on the air. I'm on the air. I have a phone number.
Yeah.
If they want to call, I can put them on the air. They can always call me. If they hear my voice and I'm on the air, and I'm going to have a short part of this tonight because Dana is going to turn into a pumpkin here in a bit. But my phone number in the future for people that want to call in and talk to us, and we're going to probably do a little bit of old school radio. I'm not going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. Yes, I'm going to put you on a timer because we do this. We do this sparingly now. We both have obligations to things that we go ahead and we keep up with. But if you want to call and talk to Dano, you want to call and talk to Dano while Dano's here on the castle, you call me at 614-602-2169. 614-602-2169. If you want to call, leave a voicemail. We always can go ahead and play it here on the show, but I want to hear from our younger audience. We have to get these folks need to hear the truth of what's going on. I was on the phone the other day with a customer down in Kentucky. A very disturbing thing was said by this customer, and I had all I could do not to vomit while I was on the call. She told me, she said, "Oh, that John Kasich, he's such a good man. Jesus watched over him." And I was thinking, and this is the same day, you know, that he came out and he's, you know, putting his tentacles out to see about the 2020 presidential race. Well, John Kasich, Johnny Boy, son of the mailman, Mr. I Like Boys, this is what I'm going to tell you, John. We can go ahead and we can have that conversation. However, the conversation that we really need to have, I want you to tell me what happened at Lehman Brothers. Because if everyone remembers, when Mr. Trump looked Mr. Kasich in the eye and looked at him and told him, he said, "John, you forget. I sat in that meeting with you. I know what was said. I know how you said it, and I know what you did that day." Yep. Mr. Kasich didn't have two more words to say throughout any of the debates. He never pulled into the main debate. He always pulled out of the main debate. He went into the undergroup after that, and he was done. We can always go ahead and we can go back and we could possibly get some DOJ investigation of Lehman Brothers to see who did what, who sold what, who bought what, and who benefited illegally, and who needs to have their money taken. This is the first governor in the state of Ohio who has refused, he and his wife have refused, to live with the little people near the governor's mansion.
Right. And the governor's mansion's not a bad place. That's what makes me laugh. Back in the day, well, I'm not going to get into that. You know what I'm talking about. There was always a phone number to that mansion. And the funny thing is, when I was in the Guard for the state of Ohio, that number was liberally sprinkled to people. And you could actually call and talk to the governor. And Kasich decided, well, you know, that mansion, that number may not even be in existence anymore. It probably is, actually, but who cares? But the thing that blows me away is we do have a good candidate for governor this year. And I'm being very frank. I mean, the man sent me, you know, the Ohio flag. I showed you it and told you the story. It was flown over the State House. And at that time, there was a state senator or congressman for the state of Ohio by the name of DeWine, Mike DeWine, who's the AG.
Right.
And he drove that out with his wife, and they both remembered it because I spoke to him years later, like 20 years later, to my mother's trailer. And she sent that flag to me in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And when you depart the show, Dano, I'm going to go dive into the deep state. And I will take people back to that time because the deep state goes far back. And unfortunately, I kind of know stuff about that. And I'm going to bring some stuff up.
Right.
But I will say that Mike DeWine is a man of integrity and honor. People may not agree with him on a lot of things, and I can't say I agree with him on everything. But he's a far, far cry from John Kasich, and I'll tell you the reason why. If he was not of the people, he and his wife would never have driven their car out to a trailer park to give one of his constituents a flippin' state flag to fly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that's all I'll say on that.
Well, right. Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot that governors do that don't make the news.
Right.
You know, we live in an age now where everything is, the important stuff is, forgotten. Just like with Mike Coleman, the Dispatch had been given damning information, and the Wolf family basically was threatened by Mr. Coleman, and the paper pulled the article.
Oh, Coleman.
Many of us had to give an information.
Coleman was quick to throw the race card out. He was the first professional poverty pimp outside of Sharpton and daggone, what's that goofball's name? Jesse Jackson. So, in the state of Ohio, that's how he got his little name out there. And he's like a Kwame Kilpatrick was to Detroit, except he was a little smarter. He didn't end up going to prison.
Right. Well, he managed to go ahead and to stay out of prison somehow. But the larger part of the problem is that his dealings with the Castro organization, being their lead attorney that does all of their evictions and everything, that's not a conflict of interest at all. Have my mayor, have my law office process evictions? Are you kidding me?
Not just that. You think back to that time. The Castro organization is nothing more than like a mafia type organization. If you look at it in real time, he should have fallen in under RICO statutes. Me being half Italian, I'm pretty, the federal government's always had a problem with Italians who are a little more organized than their taste allows. But for some reason, if you're of color, that doesn't apply, even though they will call Italian Americans spaghetti nibbas. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, well, Coleman, mommy and daddy came from the Toledo area. He was the first one out of the family to be able to go ahead and graduate for law school. And his daddy paid Mel Dodge.
Yeah.
Daddy bought his son a seat, gave Mel Dodge money, and Jerry Hammond.
Yeah.
And that's how Mike Coleman got his start in the city of Columbus. Now, for those of us that go back that far and we can remember those days and the obstruction that we saw in there, this great business atmosphere that we have here in Central Ohio and downtown Columbus, the Democrats did not bring this. None of it. They've brought zero of it. You have people like Buck Reinhardt.
Yep. He was a retired.
Yeah, Bucky.
He was
yeah,
a retired lieutenant colonel. People forget in the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah!
Hoorah! Yeah. And then you had Greg Lashutka, former SEAL.
Yeah.
He did more than his fair share to go ahead
Yes, he did.
and to bring business in. And they're not the only ones, though, and you have a lot of the suburbs. But now, when you watch all these new housing projects that are being built, it's all upper end. Mrs. Dano and I were talking about it today. We're watching all this new housing go up, and this is multi-million-dollar stuff.
Yep.
So now what they're doing is the city of Columbus is pushing their poor into the suburbs, making them have to shoulder the burden, while the city of Columbus reaps all the benefits. I do believe at some point in time, this is all going to come back to haunt the city of Columbus. And
well, it already happened.
When the financials fail on them, I believe you're going to see a very, very horrible situation play out in real time.
Well, it already has. If you actually look at it, the gentrification of Columbus started before gentrification was even a thing, with Italian Village, German Village. What was the name of that one place? I keep wanting to say Renaissance Village. That's not what it is. It's oh, my land. It's like an English name. I can't think of the name. Anyways, all those little villages that were outside of the downtown short north area, you used to go to OSU and be able to go bar hopping. Well, you know, campus partners came in, and guess who was pushing that? Our deified governor, who wants to be president, maniacal maniac. Friend of McCain, by the way. People forget that clown is like that. Clown, let's just start calling him Clown Kasich. But the thing is, they ran out all the bars, and so the kids didn't have anything to do. So then they do house parties where there's no security, nobody can throw them out, and no police there. And instead of them having a safe time at the bars, no, they're partying at their houses. And now you have the couch fires, the dumpster fires every time. See, that's the problem with Columbus and Ohio, period, that I found. And I am a Buckeye born and bred, literally. And the thing about it that makes me laugh hard is that I see what's happened in the city of Columbus. And even though, like we said, it's a small town where everybody knows your business, but the reality also is that we were gifted, what was it, 60,000 Somalis under Bill Clinton? And then the West Side now is written, you'll see where I grew up at least, you'll see signs that have both Arabic and Spanish on it because they don't want to assimilate. So screw them, honestly.
Oh, no, they don't. So I want to go ahead and I want to touch two things real quick before we go any further.
Okay.
Number 2 is going to be Barbara Bush.
Yeah, sad.
Number 2 is going to be campus partners. Al DeSantis was the king of campus properties. And when the university and when Mike Coleman came to call and wanted him to go ahead and share the wealth, they went ahead and they put their little stooges, they put their little plants in the properties. They went ahead and they started running the elaborated code compliance issues. Then they went ahead, certain people called favors in. They pushed him under federal investigation. All of a sudden, much like we see with the deep state with some of the stuff with the Russian collusion investigation, oh my God, we have a horrible person. Al DeSantis was no angel, but Al DeSantis did go ahead and take care of business.
Yes,
all those storefronts and everything that you see that have been rehabilitated along High Street, those were owned by Al DeSantis, and he got them honestly. I'm not saying that you have to like Al DeSantis. Right. I don't have to tell you that he liked that he slept with his renters. I don't have to tell you that he liked that you don't have to like that he went in and he drunk for free as part of the, establishment's rent and stuff like that. You don't have to like any of that.
Right.
But at least the man understood the character of what campus used to be.
Right.
Campus has no character now, and the Ohio State University is now becoming the ultimate, I'm trying to find a polite word, they're the ultimate unwelcome landlord because they believe that they're entitled to the buildings within the city of Columbus, which they're not.
Right.
The Ohio State University has fallen so far behind. Many of the graduates now say, I may have received my diploma from here, and since Archie Griffin is not part of the alumni association anymore, and he's not out here pressing the flesh, I take my money elsewhere. I don't need it.
As they should, honestly. Ohio State, when you and I were young, it was voted in Playboy as one of the largest party campuses in the United States. And it remained that way until, it was at least almost 2000s. And then all of a sudden campus partners came in and ruined everything. I didn't want to throw your flow off, but yeah, let's get to Barbara Bush. That's a you know what? I may not agree with both everything that her husband nor her son with the same first name as her husband. That's all I want to say on this.
Right.
I may not have agreed with those gentlemen, but one thing that lady did do, and I'm not saying she was the most attractive or any first lady ever was, but she had dignity and class, and even a sense of humor. And there's many people I know in the Secret Service that said that little grandmotherly lady would come out if they were like, if it was a cold night in DC and they were on duty, with blankets or something or coffee for the actual officers while they were doing their job. So, you know, she actually cared about the people. And that's all. I'll leave that there. You guys can come up with your own thoughts on her, but I've seen some really derogatory stuff said about her. And while I may not disagree with her husband or her son, it doesn't reflect on her.
Right. No, that it doesn't. And we're not going to talk about the unnecessary, immature, unprofessional remarks that we've seen in that the media has given attention to. But most definitely, if you see flags at half-mast, I can't, say for anyone else here in the state, but here within the confines of Central Ohio, if you drive around, you're going to find a lot of flags at half-mast. That's the reason why. And our first ladies are the crown jewels. Certain first ladies are not. Certain first ladies are the last place loser at the dog race. So, with that being said, most certainly, she is going to miss. Gunny is gone. I think it's Arlie Remy.
Yeah.
Right? Ermy, yeah. Gunny checked out. Yep. Ermy checked out Saturday or Sunday. So he went up to, I've seen all the cartoons, Heaven's Barracks with everything flipped over. For those that have their EGAs, you know exactly what we're talking about. Right. Super fine. But, he checked out, great proponent of our military, did his time, was discharged, used his government benefits to become an actor, and I think he became a greater spokesperson, I should say spokesman, for our military than anyone else possibly could have ever asked for.
And the Second Amendment. You know what? This will blow your mind on another one. Who passed also? Art Bell. There were many a night where he kept me company on a stakeout or doing something else. And, he's an Air Force veteran from Vietnam. He actually served during that era. I think he was in Thailand or the Philippines or something. Maybe Okinawa. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But, yeah, he served his nation. And, that's the thing that we used to have. Me and Dano are both veterans of the Naval Service. And that's all I'll say there. But there is a special point of pride, and we can disagree with our fellow veterans, but we'll do it in private, not publicly. And
never air your laundry. Come on.
Yeah, it's
never air it. It's really uncool.
Yeah, what needs to be said has to be said in private, and you praise in public, and that's all I'll say.
Absolutely. Okay, well, guys, Dan is going to turn into a pumpkin. He's got to make sure that he's there to help everyone keep their stuff turned on tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and flip control over to Kaiser. It's good seeing everyone here on KTRN. We may put something together on Monday if we can go ahead and, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. If we don't do it on Monday, we'll definitely put something together on Tuesday. So
that's right.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
That's right.
Great.
Not a problem, brother. I love having you on, and all I'll say is I'm going to continue on with my live stream, but you drift off into sleepy land, my brother, and have a good night. Cuddle up and snuggle. All right?
Man.
God bless.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Well, that's Dano. He was here. He's got stuff he's got to do. And I've got stuff I've got to do. I'm going to jump on this right now. We're going to do a little deep swim, a deep dive into the deep state. I'm about to bust stuff open. Back in the Gulf War, straight up biz, I'm going to fill you in on some things. Back prior to the Gulf War, Everybody knows I was a Cold Warrior. I started when Fort McClellan was still open, and there was still such a unit called Bravo Company 10th Military Police Battalion Training Battalion. And that's where I went through OSIT. That was one station unit training, basic training, and military police school. It was Magdalen Hall. Yeah, that's back in the day, so people want to look up that era. And I was 17 when I did that. Then all of a sudden, later on in life, old Shuffy, goes into the Marine Corps, chills out, and has a good time. Real good time. Got my first war too. I absolutely loved it. It was something that I took with a tremendous amount of pride, that I was able to do 2 basic trainings and military police schools. And during that time, 88 to 92, the Gulf War happened. Well, prior to the Gulf War happening, in 1990, people forget. I can't forget because I lived it. What I'll say is, people forget. Gerald Bull, okay, he was a Canadian, and what he was a firearms designer. When I say firearm, I'm not talking like a rifle, okay? I'm talking super guns. People can look this up. Gerald Bull. Now, back before, when the space race first started and Gerald Bull was inventing these super guns, he was doing it for the U.S. Army originally. And he was making these artillery pieces to be able to launch satellites, because our rocketry hadn't quite gotten to that point. And some will say that the Germans that were on the rocket design teams were dragging their feet. That may well be the case. I don't know. I can't attest to that. I'd be a liar if I did. But what I can tell you is that it was proven fact he could do it. Okay? Now, everybody knows I deep dive into the gutters and sewers of the internet. And I'm always checking on when things are coming out and what's going on. But before the Gulf War happened, 2 things of note. First, on the Al Hussein missiles, the revamped Scuds that he put chemical weapons on. I was going to have one of my sergeants on who was with me, so he'll remain nameless until unless he wants to come on a certain incident that I'm going to deep dive into after I'm done telling his backstory. But he redesigned that nose cone for re-entry on the Al Hussein missiles. That's what Gerald Bull did. But he also built super guns. And nobody can doubt it. We found them. And a matter of fact, you can go to the Imperial War Museum in Duxford and see a section of the Iraqi super gun. And he tried to ship in other sections, and of course English customs snatched them up. Now, if you go, I wanted to look at this because I remember seeing this a long time ago, and they haven't corrected it on Wikipedia. Now, they officially have his death date as March 22nd. But the funniest part is, I'll just read you their little entry, because this is down later on. And this is true. This is what happened. In March of 1990, he was assassinated. One account states, only one account, okay? He was shot 5 times in the back and the head at point blank range while approaching the door of his apartment in Brussels. Any of you who've been to Brussels, Belgium, knows that apartments are pretty close together. So even if it's suppressed, somebody's going to walk into him, right? And another account states that he was shot by a 3-man team on March 20th. And both of them are for March 20th. When he answered the doorbell. Well, even if he answered the doorbell, if they fired even with suppressed weapons, they're not just going to like try to shut the door real quick and push him back in, and it's not like some blood's not going to leak out from under the door. So this whole thing where his official death date is the 22nd, and see, this has happened for a long time, and I just got to correct Wiki on that, because the reality of it is one thing. But this happened before, and I'm giving you dates now. The official timeline, now you got to go about a month and a half later, in May, the 28th and 30th. Saddam Hussein was griping that Kuwait and the UAE were, sideways drilling into the Ramallah oil fields. See, I remember this. There's a lot going on in my life at that time. And then all of a sudden, July happens. I remember Hosni Mubarak ran to Baghdad, so did the king of Jordan. Everybody trying to tell, Saddam, chill. And that would have been in July, the 24th. I'm looking at it now. I just pulled it up. 2nd of August, this is a fact. Saddam had his people go into Kuwait. Now, remember, after this happened, you had April Gillespie. I'm going by memory now because I remember it. She made a very public meeting with Saddam and publicly stated the U.S. has no official policy on Arab-to-Arab conflicts. We're not going to get involved. That's what she did. That's a fact. What Saddam didn't know, and most Americans didn't know, but everybody in my Marine Corps unit knows, when that invasion happened, that night we got locked down. 1st Marine Division was lock, stock, and barrel in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Ras Al Jabal, August 7th, 1990, 5 days later. It was us, the 82nd, and I can't remember, I think it was like I'm going to be wrong on this. It was a mobile infantry unit out of Fort, oh my land, Louisiana, Fort, it's swampland, it's Fort, I'm mind dumping the name of the fort now, sorry guys. But we were the tripwire if Saddam went into Saudi Arabia, the kingdom. Well, we was there. And the funny part is, now I'm going to get to the story. There was a night, and I've got the links to everything I'm talking to, because some of this stuff, one thing was public back in the day, but I'd never seen it on the internet until now. The first time I ever saw anybody talk about this, other than the English, was today. The English have always talked about the Jebel incident. And a matter of fact, you can find it because they didn't classify it. The U.S. did. And we had been taking a drug called paradistostamine bromide. And paradistostamine bromide was nerve agent pre-treatment. So if you got hit with nerve agent, it wouldn't be a big issue. Now you're going to wonder why I'm bringing this up in Gerald Bull. Well, I'm going to make the tie-in for you here in a few. So, when we were out there chilling, having the time of our lives, I'm joking, right? Tongue firmly in my cheek. What ended up happening was me and my sergeant, we happened to stop out at a little ECP, entry control point. And we were talking to a couple of the MPs. And we were doing highway patrol. He was an accident investigator at the time. And when you read the reports, the U.S. reports are funny because they lie. They actually lie about the facts. I know the facts because me and my sergeant were the ones who went there. The Al Hussein missile broke up. It was a full moon. I remember it like it was yesterday. And as it was breaking up, it was doing like, if you took your arm and waved it in front of you, the forearm, and sort of tried to do like a break dance move with your arm. That's what that missile looked like in that full moon. And it was sparking. It was beautiful, man. Beautiful. Then it blew up. I'll never forget. Blew up in the air like a boom. And we're like, whoa. And you can see the warhead and part of that missile doing a flip, sort of like how somebody kicks a football. And you watch it go through the uprights. And believe it or not, there were uprights. It was amazing. You had a fore and an aft masthead on a ship called the Cape Florida. It was loaded in the port of Ras Al Jabal with MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems. And from our angle, we knew where it was headed. And I'm like, oh, it's going to hit that ship. And it missed it. But it sounded like this big beer can crush. So me and my sergeant, we raced out there. We were the first two out there on this jetty that ran parallel to the ship, the Cape Florida. And we're out there on our vehicle. We pulled both of our vehicles up. Missile still red hot, sizzling and smoking. And the English had a compound fairly close to this jetty, and their sirens are going off. They're saying gas, gas, gas. And we had to ship all of our mop gear back to the U.S. like a month before or something, a month or two before. Yeah, because this is around February, if I remember right. Anyways, what ended up happening was we're writing our reports. An English EOD team with one Navy EOD tech shows up. Look, now it's public, baby. So they can't hold me to anything because I'm just telling public and correcting the record. That's all I'm doing. I'm correcting the record because I read what they wrote. And they're missing out some facts. And guess what? You're going to find me and that sergeant. We the only two non-EOD techs that wrote up reports on this thing. So anyways, we're writing up the reports. They're out there and they're finding nerve agent. They're like, yep, there's some nerve agent around here, you know. And we're right next to the missile. It's hilarious. And we're writing our report. And they're all gas mask up. And the Navy guy, of course, you know, he's over there watching us. And he's like, yeah, we're finding nerve agent, but these MPs, they're fine, you know. They gave us, oh, by the way, when we sent back our mop gear, they gave us new mop gear. This is how it's going to tie in. This is how it's going to tie in. And we were told we could only put it on when we were told to do it. Okay? We'd only put on our mop gear, not when the alarms went off, but when we were given orders to put it on. Now that sounds contrary to everybody in the military police, or everybody in the military. But this was the order during this time. And we only got issued one because more were coming. But we only got this first batch. By the way, somewhere I have that batch, that suit, still. So somebody want to counter on me, I can pull it up. Anyways, as we're doing this, the Navy guy finally is just like, look, they're fine. He rips his mask off. And then we were all talking later. The Brits were all like, they didn't take their stuff off. We're all talking later, and we came to the conclusion it was probably the paradisdostamine bromide tablets, the reason why we weren't affected by it. And honestly, I don't have Gulf War illness. I know people who have. You know, I've got PTSD out the whizwag, but I'm fine with it. You know, it's all good. You don't worry about that crap. But the funny thing is, paradisdostamine bromide was never confirmed by the USDA or the DEA or any other agency. It was made in Holland, Amsterdam. Oh, wow. Where's that close to? Now we go back to Brussels. So the super guns during the war got dismantled. And there was more than one. That's another thing they got wrong. And yes, when I say satellites were being launched out of it, that's not a BS story. That's a true story. This happened. And the reason why those suits got recalled was because everybody forgets Bush's. They remember a lot of his speeches. I remember them all intimately because I remember the first time I heard him lie. And I'm talking Bush Sr., okay, not Jr. First time I heard him lie, he didn't lie actually. He said something, but nobody caught on to it. Nuclear, chemical, biological, and other weapons of mass destruction. Other weapons of mass destruction. See, that's the thing you have to look at, folks. Sometimes people will say stuff, it'll be coded, and you may not know what it means. And then sometime later, and guess what? This got brought to life by Popular Mechanics. Link is in the description, folks. Check it out. See, I can talk about this stuff now because it's out there. So I'm going to tell you, I got laughed at. People said I was making it up. But guess what? It's real. And you're now seeing it. Maybe for the first time. On this, they say it's psychoelectronic weapon effects. And also, brain mapping and all this crap. That's pretty much the cover for it. But what it was like a nerve agent. If you looked at those old mop equipment that they reissued us, if you were able to see them, and then you were able to cut one open, you'd find these real fine copper thread going through it. All right. Yeah, it went through it. There's a reason. Because us, China, Russia, of course we couldn't do anything to them, but the fourth largest army out there, well, that was the Iraqi army. We could do something to them. We had these little satellites that went around. And it will basically, you could do it to an area, or you could even do it to a person. Where it basically looks like they got hit with a nerve agent because it short circuits their nervous system. And this is what's been outed. All this now is outed. So nobody can come up to me. Nobody can talk no shit to me anymore. So let me see. Since 1990, I knew about this. And I've talked about this with numerous people. And people blown smoke. Said I'm full of it. Well, guess what? Who's full of it now? As I say, folks, if I say something, I'm going to say something that I know. I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to make crap up. I don't have to. That's what happens when you live a life. Just like on Adak, Alaska, the forerunner to HARP was called Classic Wizard. And everybody who did a push over there with me in my old unit in the Army, yeah, on a naval air station, Adak, Alaska, we had an Army detachment there. You didn't know that, did you? Oh, Yeah, there's probably a lot you guys don't know. But now you're learning, right? So I'm going to deep dive again. See, everything you've seen with Holder, we was talking about it. We brushed over it with Holder, with Comey, Struck, Page, all the clown company that we're seeing. And people forget, Clapper, Brennan. Oh, yeah. When did you convert to Islam in Riyadh? Oh, it was during the Gulf War, right, man? Oh, head of the CIA? Oh, really? You think people forgot? I didn't forget. You know what? I'm good if somebody wants to talk smack. I'm good if people visit me and want to know things. I know you guys in the deep state aren't. Because I know your corruption. I know what you're about. I have a long memory. Just like me and Dano were talking about earlier. State of Ohio, and Columbus in particular, where I grew up. It was like the largest small town in the USA. And the military, both the Army units and my Marine Corps units, they were nothing more than another large, small town in Shuffy's mind. And I don't forget, I may mind dump for a minute, but I'll remember. And I'll make sure to remember on certain things, because some parts of history get indelibly linked into my mind. So why you want to talk smack? Why you want to think you know something? Oh, I'm watching this happen. And I've been saying this for months, probably for years. Those who know me long enough. Those people that hang around that are woke and sloke. Those that are on my page. They see what I say every day. And I'm sure I've got some lurkers. I'm sure I got some people out there that misrepresent, like to pass information to different agencies. Matter of fact, I know I do. Don't think I don't know who you are, too, by the way. Guess what? When I say something, I mean it. And it always comes true. Just like this. So with that being said, I'm going to give you a little bit of something a brother of mine sent. Now, he knows I don't have a father. He knows I'm a bastard. But I do like this because it sort of gets the mood right. And he made this for me. This is from Axon. It's called Benito di Predapio.
My father taught me many things here. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
With that being pumped out to the airwaves for your enjoyment, notice that little circus sound? I've said this often in my life. I've been one of the 3 ring masters to the shit show. Done it numerous places. Some people know some of those places. Some people don't. But one thing I will tell you, I can't complain. Had an awesome time doing it. We'll continue to have an awesome time. Because I ain't done yet. I'll be 50. Half a century, baby. And I'll stop the day I take my last breath. So with that being said, y'all know old Shuffy. He was happy that you guys were able to take a great big seat, all 94 of you on my page, on my big orange couch, chill out, have a cup of coffee, pop a soda, drink a beer, and enjoy the day. And with that being said, y'all know what's coming. Shove out.